One.
Good morning, everybody. This is Krista Griffith, and I'm a state representative.
Recording in progress.
The 12th District of Delaware. Welcome to our, I believe, our third meeting of the Aging in Place Working Group subgroup that deals with financial and legal barriers to aging in place. I'm co-chair Krista Griffith, and with me is co-chair Julie Devlin. Hey, Julie. Also,
hi, everyone.
Amy Milligan. Good morning, Amy. Kylie Reed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jerry Konzelman. Jamie Ramage.
Good morning.
Kimberly Roman.
Hi, good morning.
Olga Beskrone. And Denise Robinson. Denise, are you a member of the committee or are you here? I think you might be a member of the committee, but I can't remember because you're with APS, or are you here to support APS for the presentation?
I'm with the Division of Medicaid and Medical Assistance. I'm here for Lisa Zimmerman.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so you're her proxy meeting?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. Okay, that's great to know. Thank you, Denise. All right. So I think we did I leave anybody off? Any committee members that are with us? Oh, okay. Well, so that's who we have. And then our guest today is Michelle Welch, who is the Director of Adult Protective Services. In a few minutes, Michelle will give us a presentation on Adult Protective Services, the work that the division is doing, and any questions we may have. But before we get to that, let's do, if we can have approval of minutes. The minutes went out last week, I believe, to every member. Mike, if you could bring up the first set of minutes, which I believe is from our November 15th meeting date. Did anyone have any questions or comments or changes for the meeting minutes of November 15th? If there are no questions or comments, is there a motion to approve the meeting minutes? Anyone can make the motion.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Kylie. Thank you. All those in favor, just
I'll make a motion to approve.
All those in favor? All right. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. And then similarly, Mike, if you could bring up the minutes, please, of November 29th. Any questions or comments regarding these minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I wondered if the slides that Catherine provided could be attached to the minutes.
Those typically are not in the minutes.
Okay.
You can have them, but I think, do you need a copy of them, Jerry? Would you like a copy of them?
Yes, I thought that they were good. And,
okay, so we can get that. I'm sure we can get that to you that way. And then you can have them for reference.
Thank you.
Jerry, I'll send them to you after the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, Jerry. All right, so any motion to approve the minutes?
Approved.
Second, anyone second?
Second.
All in favor? Raise of hands.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions? All right, those minutes are done. Now, Julia.
Aye.
Okay, I think we have someone's a little delayed. Julie, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce Michelle, and then we will go from there. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Representative Griffith. So I want to introduce everyone to Michelle Welch. She is our administrator for Adult Protective Services. Adult Protective Services is housed within my division, the Division of Services for Aging and Adults with Physical Disabilities. And Michelle has been the administrator for a couple of years now, working very closely with our leadership as well as my unit, the Planning, Policy, and Program Development Unit, to make really important changes to the program and just make it more efficient, as well as really work towards the needs of the people that we serve, which are people, alleged victims who have been abused, neglected, or exploited. And so I'll let Michelle I'll hand it off to her and I'll let her talk. But I am also here to answer any questions. And so Michelle, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. And again, let me just apologize for the lack of camera. I'm so sorry. I wish I was like on there because I just feel like I'm being rude, but please forgive me. So I have a presentation here that was nicely written by Julie. I am going to skip parts of it because I think you all have a pretty good idea of what Adult Protective Services represents. And I will use the acronym APS often. So APS was established in 1982 to develop a system of services for impaired adults to protect their health, safety, and welfare. And the Delaware Code is Title 31, Chapter 39. So the population that we serve are 60 and older, or 18 and older, having a physical or mental disability living in the community. So I think one of the biggest things that I like to let people know is even though there are a lot of people in the community that may benefit for services that are rendered by Adult Protective Services and the Division of Aging, they have the right to refuse our services, which is something that a lot of people find it difficult to understand, and even we do at times, but they do have the right to refuse services regardless of the risk. However, with me being a nurse by trade, I always make sure that our staff, along with our nurses, explain to them what those risks are and make sure that they understand the risk before they leave that home. We also, depending on the circumstances, we may hold on to that case for a little bit and just give them some complimentary phone calls just to try and develop a rapport to see if we can try to sway them to change their mind and allow us to offer them services so that we can better get them a better quality of life in the home. Let's see. So I wanted to get to the referral process. I think it's important. So as you know, Adult Protective Services investigates, looks into concerns of physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. We also look into caregiver neglect and exploitation. We will in the near future take on self-neglects, but as of right now, we just look into caregiver neglects. Our home visits are unannounced, especially with the initial visit, they're unannounced. As far as our timelines for physical and sexual, we look into within 24 hours. If we do have a referral that comes in earlier in the day before hours are ending, we will try to go out the same day. Emotional abuse and neglect, usually about 3 days, and exploitations, we have up to 5 days. Again, that doesn't mean we always follow the timelines because depending on the case, the circumstances, we may overlook the timelines and go out a lot sooner. We can hold on to cases up to 90 days, sometimes longer, depending on circumstances, because sometimes if we're not quite comfortable with walking away from a case, we will hold on to it and we'll kind of make another visit just to make sure that that person is safe and being cared for if there is a caregiver involved. Or if the person is living at home, we may double back just to make sure that that person is not declining and that they still are able to function in their home alone. Or we may determine if we go back out that they may need support. So in that case, we would actually put in another referral to our sisters, which are community services. Things that APS cannot do. One of the biggest things is, again, we cannot force people to leave their homes based on societal norms. And when I say that, I mean, if someone is not living the way that we would deem appropriate, we cannot just force them out of their homes. Again, we have to explain to them the risk. If they are understanding the risk and they choose to live that way, we have to be satisfied with that. Again, we can try to develop a rapport and come back a few times, but for the most part, we don't harass people. If they truly don't want our services, we have no choice but to walk away. Now, if there is a capacity issue where someone does not have the capacity to make a decision for themselves that is basically a safe decision, that is a competent decision, then of course things have to be done differently. In those cases, we would advocate for the client. Again, we would look for other sources if there's family members before we actually decide that we have to do a protective placement for anyone. So we look at everything. We always try to do the least possible restriction of personal and civil rights. And that just simply means that the goal is to keep people in their homes, in the community, as long as we possibly can. So if we can place them with a family member, or if there's a family member willing to come and stay with a client, we want them to remain in their homes as long as they possibly can. So with the referral process, anyone, of course, can make a referral to us. However, some of the mandated reporters are financial institutions, of course. They actually have to report anything that they deem to be suspicious. So we get a lot of referrals from financial institutions. Medical facilities, for the most part, if the person lacks capacity, and I always say, if in doubt, report it. We're running into a lot of situations now because with the mandated reporting, it's kind of a fine line when someone has capacity. If a person is alert and oriented and they say, I do not want you to report this, I do not want you calling anyone, I do not. So that's where you have to look at it ethically speaking, and you have to honor their rights by not reporting it. Again, that doesn't say that you can't offer them resources. You can always call Adult Protective Services and see what resources we have to offer to that person. And you can always equip them with the 1-800 number to reach out if they do change their mind. The main thing that I have changed in the time that I came into Adult Protective Services, because I did see that there was a weakness with our screening process, is that we do not screen out cases anymore without doing something. If they do not meet the criteria for our specific agency, they have to, right now we're equipped with 2 screeners, which is a blessing. It's great because we have twice the fund now, but they have to find a resource for that person. They have to make sure that they connect them with someone that can offer them assistance. So I feel more comfortable now because I know that at the end of the day, even though it wasn't appropriate for us, we got them into the place where they need to be. So that's one of the major changes that we've had in this agency. And again, I say we are a work in progress because when I came in, I took a look at the program and there were some extreme weaknesses. We have offered more education and training to our master family service specialists so that they are more equipped to deal with family members and clients. They have been getting in services on how to include clients in on their service plans and make sure that we're doing the best that we can to accommodate their needs and their desires in the home. We also have brought on 4 new nurses, and the nurses work with the master family service specialists. They work with them hand on hand to make sure that any medical components that are in these cases, that we address all those medical components. That could be something as tedious as making sure that someone has a primary care and that they're up to date on their visits. We all lived through COVID, and some of the clients that were living in the homes, they may have lost their caregivers, and the caregivers may have kept up with all their appointments and doctor's appointments. So now what do? So they are neglecting themselves. So they're not going to doctor's appointments. So our nurses will go out hand on hand. They'll do televisits with them. APS can transport to doctor's appointments. We can sit down with them and go over their medical, their meds with them, make sure that they're taking their medications. Our nurses go and they do full head to toe assessments There's been multiple times where people aren't taking their meds. So they're in medical crises, like they have high blood pressure, their blood sugars are out of control. So they'll call, get EMS. They'll work closely with the doctors to get these people back on their medications. We make sure that they have their medications or the means to get their medications. The Master Family Services, they work closely with other agencies to make sure that they connect them with services. We work with DDDS with their clients to make sure that they're getting what they need. If they need to be temporarily placed somewhere else, Adult Protective Services helps to collaborate those movements. So our agency is pretty busy. And as our management is seeing that our work is outweighing our staff. So I'll let Julie kind of tell you about the new changes, but I'm looking forward to us becoming bigger, better, and stronger. We have small staffing, so we do have a high turnover. And right now with the COVID, we have people that have children that are out, so right now we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul some days, just to keep our staff strong and able to go out and accommodate our clients. We have anywhere from 250 to 300 cases each month. So we're pretty busy with trying to do what we can to accommodate our population. I think I've covered all of the major points. So does anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Michelle. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, so I have some myself, but before I ask mine, I'll see if any committee members have any questions for Michelle. Go ahead, Jamie.
Thank you. One question I had was, thank you for explaining your screening process. And I apologize, I just had a message pop up saying my internet is unstable. Can you hear me okay? Am I breaking up?
We can hear you. Sometimes you're a little bit delayed, but it catches up.
Garbled.
But it catches up, so we can hear you okay.
Okay, thank you. So again, I was more curious around the referral that comes in that is screened, and you shared if it's not appropriate for APS and if it's referred out. I understand that some referrals are anonymous, but others are not. And I'm just curious if there's communication back to the referrer, the initial referrer to APS, to make them aware of an issue and a concern. Oftentimes we would know if APS intervenes, but we wouldn't know if it's, referred out to another party. So I'm just curious about the communication with the initial refer to your agency.
So what the screeners are doing with the referral source, as long as we know who the referral source is and we know how to contact them, when they are screening these referrals to someone else, they will reach out to the referral source and they will let them know that the case may not be appropriate for our agency. However, these are some referrals that we decided to give you to either make the referral or we'll try to make a referral for them. So they're supposed to be reaching out to the referral source to let them know. As you know, a lot of our referral sources, except for most of the agency ones, a lot of the ones that come from family or friends, they do want to remain anonymous. Sometimes if they come into our Aging and Disability Resource Center, the contact numbers are captured, and then we can call them and let them know that this is not the appropriate agency, but you probably want to reach out to this agency.
And can I just add, we send a letter as well to all referral sources that we have information on. So with contact information in case like something else comes up that they want to report on. So that way we can document any of the additional information and connect it to the right case. But Michelle and her team are really careful because it is confidential information under HIPAA, the kind of reports that are made. And so they can only share so much with the referral source unless the alleged victim allows them to share the full gamut of information. And so Michelle and her team are very careful about what is shared. Because of that, we don't want to take away anybody's rights, especially when it comes to their private information.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. And also, with that being said, if you are talking to someone that is thinking of making an APS referral, a lot of people want to remain anonymous. That's fine. But the only issue that we have with that is, one, we can't reach back out to you. And two, we don't disclose who makes the referral anyway. So even if you tell us who you are, the victim and the perpetrators, they don't know who made the referral anyway. So we're trying to get more people to understand that you're anonymous anyway. The only person that you're remaining anonymous to really is us when you say you want to remain anonymous, because they never know who you are anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Jamie. Any other questions? Jerry?
I wondered, Michelle, you emphasized that people had the right to refuse, and I totally believe in that. I wondered if you had any idea of the percentage of people who might refuse services once they're contacted.
I would say the clients that refuse, I would say probably 1 out of every 3 cases we get, someone refuses our services.
Okay. And the other question I had in terms of capacity to refuse, is there a tool that your staff uses to determine that, or do you do testing of some sort?
So the nurses and the master family service specialists are trained to use the mini-cog. In the event that someone does not do well on the mini-cog, we will reach out to their primary care physicians for more information. Usually we'll request a physician's affidavit if someone's capacity is in question.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a comment, the major change that you made is fantastic, that you're not dropping people out, that you're looking to connect them, because I imagine that there's people that do contact your office who are not aware of the service, and creating that linkage. One of the discussions that we're having is how difficult it is for people to determine where they should call or what they need. So the fact that your staff is doing that linkage work for people who aren't getting your services, that's fantastic. And then the other thing I wanted to comment, we were given homework to see how quickly we could find your phone number. And I'd like to share that it took me 30 seconds.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I chose to call late on a Friday afternoon when people, staff are kind of maybe after a week of work, not that your work ever stops, but might be a bit slower. And it took 90 seconds for someone to respond when the phone rang. And very pleasant person. And when I shared that, I had made a mistake, I had dialed the wrong number, the person who was connecting with me was incredibly kind, very, very nice, in the sense that they went out of their way to share with me to call again, really reassuring instead of going, okay, and hanging up. There was like this connection that I felt as a human being. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you very much. And I have to say that this unit is, when I applied for this job, it was a personal thing for me because my grandmother died in a long-term care facility and she had a home. And I often say, if I had the knowledge then that I have now, she could have been in her own home and she probably would have lived longer. So I take my responsibilities very seriously, and I want to make this unit bigger and better because I think that this population deserves the attention, they deserve the care, they deserve the respect to be able to live in their homes without being taken advantage of. So thank you very much for your comments.
Welcome.
Thank you so much, Jerry. You did the homework. That's awesome. And thank you, Michelle. I too looked up the number, and it took me I said, how do I report elder abuse in Delaware? Went right to your page, put all the information. Everyone's a mandatory reporter, went through the various types. The number was written multiple times on the page. I think that's an improvement, because I think when I was trying to do this for a constituent, and I used to work for the Senior Protection Initiative, Michelle, and I had the number in my phone then, and it took me way too long, about 6 months to a year. So I don't know if this is a new page or what, but it's extremely, is it new, Julie? Is it a new?
Yeah, so in 2019, Adult Protective Services went before the Joint Legislative Oversight and Sunset Committee. And so we made some major changes to our website in 2019 to make the phone number more visible, as well as explain the process a little bit more on our website. And we still have more changes to make. And so even though it's good, it can be better and easier to get to from the front page. And so we're working on that. Our whole entire website needs to be a little bit more user friendly. But yes, it is our goal to continue to get APS and its phone number up front and center. And Michelle already alluded to some big changes, but because of all of the federal COVID funding that we've recently received as an agency, we'll be making even more dramatic changes, including changing the phone number to an easier to remember phone number, something like 1-800 DE abuse or something. I'm not saying that's going to be the phone number, but something that is a lot easier to remember than the 1-800-223-9074. And I do have it memorized, but so that hopefully we get more people who can just easily remember that phone number. And then we're also matching that with a $500,000 marketing campaign. And so expect to see that sometime this summer, plastered all over dark buses and radio spots in the newspaper. So it's going to be that. And then also education around who should be reporting, what does reporting look like, and what APS can and cannot do. And so that is going to be really helpful. And we know that's going to cause an influx of cases. So we're also working on staffing up. And so we are going to create a new unit right now. APS has offices in Milford and in Newcastle. And so we're hoping to get a Kent County office in Smyrna. And so we are hoping to add, I think, 14 new staff positions total. So we're working on that right now. And hopefully by next year, we'll have them.
And I can't emphasize enough those direct first contacts. That phone number, people are so hesitant, and if they get that warmth, they'll eventually maybe get to the master family specialist. I mean, those initial people are so pivotal, and no call can be a mistake.
And thank you, Jerry. And we have worked really hard with our staff so that our Aging and Disability Resource Center staff pick up the phone. So they're the people that you talk to. And so we've been working with them also with COVID funding to raise their professionalism. They are all participating in a certification process for people like them, who community resource specialists in aging and disabilities. And so they have been working hard throughout COVID, taking trainings and getting certified, working with Michelle and her team and then our other units within our organization to really understand what talking to people is and the kind of delicate situations people are calling about. And that is why that warmth and personal touch are necessary.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to have more questions, and we're going to go in this order: Olga, Kylie, and then back to Jamie. But before we get to Olga, I just want to have Michelle explain this. I think everyone on this call knows this, but I think it's beneficial. The distinction, if you could, please, between reporting abuse in a facility versus in a home, because there definitely is a distinction. So if memory serves, any facility reported abuse goes through the Medicaid control, the MFUCU unit of the Department of Justice or long-term care. And then versus the individual. So could you please make the distinction of abuse reporting or neglect reporting, facility versus home, and how the different agencies respond to that? Because I think we may know it on this call, but other people listening to our committee may not. And I think that's an important distinction. So after you explain that, then we'll go to Olga's question. Thank you.
Okay. So Adult Protective Services, we look into concerns in the community where they're actually living in the community setting. That would be their home. That would be independent community living environments such as apartment complex. However, any individual living in anything that's assumed by a facility, even if it's an assisted living, but it's under a facility, then it falls under Delaware Healthcare Qualities. And normally people are confused with the two, but we work very closely with them. So I wouldn't get overly concerned if you don't know who to report it to. If you send it in to us, we're going to get it to them. So, and there are some cases that kind of intertwine with each other, because if you have someone that has went into a facility for rehab and something has occurred while they were in the community, then we're both going to work together to make sure that we get those needs taken care of for that person before they go back into the community.
Well, that's a wonderful explanation. I appreciate that partnership. And I think that seems to be a big change since when I was working in this area several years ago, where it seemed like a lot of people would call APS and we said, oh, you got to call this department or agency, and vice versa. And I think people tire if they have the courage to make one call and they find out they're a different agency, they may not pick up the phone to make a call to that second agency. So the fact that you're working together to try to make sure the referral is made to the correct investigatory body, that's terrific and really important. So thank you for that. Okay, Olga, you're up.
Thank you, Representative Griffith. I am the supervising attorney in the elder law program at Classy, in case I'm sure you've all remembered that, but I just thought I'd reintroduce myself. And I also would like to commend the ARDC intake staff for their compassion and their extraordinary responsiveness to my clients and me. I do appreciate them. And I'm raising an issue that I think may be very narrow, but I think it's important, so I'd like to raise it now, relating to that population who rejects APS services, even though one might think that they really, really need APS services, and they pass the mini assessment test that you have provided to them. I think that there's a group of people who pass that test, but who really are not fully competent to make the decisions that they want to make. And that as a result of that lack of capacity, I guess for lack of a better word, they are gonna slip through the cracks, and they are going to dissipate their resources, and they are going to end up in a very serious situation that will require a lot of resources to deal with once that happens. So I guess I'm wondering, who can I reach out to as an advocate to discuss a situation where I think maybe APS stepped back too soon or inappropriately. And don't get me wrong, I totally respect APS's limitations with regard to people rejecting or refusing services and people's right to do that. There are situations though where I would like to discuss with I guess more senior APS staff particular situations where I think that was not a good idea.
So with individuals that I like to say they're in the gray area because they're able to pass the mini-cog even though they do have some deficit. Normally, that can be assessed during an APS visit. And normally, especially with the nurses on board, like I said, normally there is a call into the doctor. By law, we have to go with what the doctor says. And I understand exactly what you're saying, because sometimes doctors still will say they're able to make their own decisions. But then we're still at that point where we say they need something, we just don't quite know what they need. So in those cases, we usually try to reach out to our other agencies. CSP has a CAT unit, and they go out and they do an assessment, and they also have a nurse on their staff, which is a nurse navigator. The nurse navigator usually will add these people to her caseload, and she kind of monitors these people for longer periods of time. And what we hope to do when we create that net is we try to make sure that we have a hold of this person so that when they do get out of the gray area, that we still have them, so that we can try to pick up on their needs and do what we need to do when they get to the point where they actually cannot service themselves, or they are not safe any longer in the community. Now, this also is a new program for us, but we are trying to do the best that we can so that these people that are in that gray area, we don't let go of these people completely. Of course, Adult Protective Services has such a quick turnover with cases sometimes. Of course, we can't hold on to these people forever. But like I said, our other units, if we can just get them to agree to something, even if it's just to go on the wait list for services, if we can get them to agree to something, we can usually hold on to these people and try to develop a rapport, or we can have that nurse navigator go out and do visits to make sure that we know when they start to decline to the point where they actually have to take some type of service to remain in the home. You can always reach out to me if you do have questions about a client that you feel needs advocacy, because I know I've been working closely with the new Ombudsman program supervisor, and she's in the process of revamping their community ombudsman as well. And they are also good advocates to have your clients hooked up with in the community as well.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Olga. That was a really great question, and also I think helpful for others on this call who feel like they may need to know what to do if their concerns aren't being followed up on and they want to spread more information or give more information to APS. So thank you for that. Kylie?
Thank you. Julie mentioned that part of the marketing campaign is going to be education on what APS does. Could you, if you know yet, talk about what form that education will take?
We don't know exactly yet. We have grant meetings pretty regularly, but we haven't gotten that far yet. But I imagine it's going to be multidimensional, not just pamphlets and one-pagers, but actual presentations. Many years ago, APS themselves would go out in the field and do presentations. They still do, as like Michelle is here giving a presentation. But as you've heard, they are really busy. And so we can't really expect them to always go out and give presentations. And so having our training unit do it, or working with, other agencies to help us to give presentations, we understand the value of live presentations. And so that's definitely going to be part of it. We'll see.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to add with that, because we've been working closely with our in-house trainers also, and they develop trainings as well. Adult Protective Services normally receives some type of training monthly, just to enforce what they have or to offer new information. The biggest topic now, I think, is dealing with the mental illness and mental health in the community. So we've been having people come in from Dover Behavioral and Meadowwood and offering tips on how to recognize it and how to refer people to different areas. So we try to offer as much education as we can, because they deal with a lot of stuff. And when you're kind of zoned in on specific things, you know, when other things approach you, you don't know what you're looking at. So we're trying to empower them with information and skills on how to recognize other things that are in the community and try to redirect people into other areas to get assistance.
Thank you, Michelle. Back to you, Jamie.
Thank you. Kind of dovetailing off of Olga's a little bit. I was curious, Michelle, you said about societal norms and you know, the determination of when to step in or not based on these societal. Can you help define for us what those societal norms are that you are looking for? Because it, you know, the definition, everybody's dictionary can be very different, and so, you know, it might help for us to understand that a little bit better, to set our expectations.
So a big one is everyone goes home, I'm sure on this call, and you have a house that's structurally sound, that's in good shape. You know, you have all your windows, your roof is not leaking, your floor is not unsteady. So a lot of these homes, especially in the Sussex County area, these people have worked really hard to purchase their homes. So we may go in a home that we feel like is not structurally sound. So we may think like, you know, we really shouldn't leave this person here, or should we try to get this person out? But you may go there and little Miss Sally may say, I'm not going anywhere. This is my house. I don't care if it falls down on top of me. I'm going down with my house, you know? And, you know, society would say, this house is not safe for this lady. Cause you know, you think it, even though you're not saying it out loud, you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm really scared to leave her in here. Like, I feel like I'm about to fall through the floor. But if she has capacity, she understands, ma'am, your floor is unsteady. You know, I really have a safety concern about you falling through your floor. You know, would you like for us to look into trying to get your floor repaired? And some of them may say, well, what do you mean? Some of them may want more information, but you have that few that do not trust people coming in their homes. They don't trust that you're going to get their floor fixed with no cost. They don't trust that you're actually legitimately trying to help them. So they may say, no, I don't want you to do anything. I'm okay with my floor. Get out my house. So in those situations, if they are truly, you know, if they truly have capacity, they truly don't want our services, we have to say, okay, thank you. You know, sometimes they'll say, well, you know what, is it okay if we check back with you in a month to see if you change your mind? Some of them may say, well, you can. Some of them may say, no, I don't want your help. Leave me alone. Get out of my house. Don't come back. You know, and we do get a lot of that. So that's one of the biggest examples I have for Sussex County with the societal norms. And then even some of the home health agencies, if you have a home health agency that's going in there, they'll say, you need to get her out of there. It's not safe there. You just need to get her out of there. And we'll say, you know, it's not much we can do if she doesn't want to leave her home. So, you know, that's a big one.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think sometimes we struggle with particularly bedbound clients at home that are left alone for periods of time. And, you know, your mind goes to the worst case scenario of if there's a fire. That's a big concern that I've seen in the past.
And we do run.
Yeah, they're of sound mind though to make that decision. That's the scary part. And then one other quick question, and I don't know if this delves into something else. Ombudsman, help me understand exactly what that program is and who, if that is that a man? Is it, you know, Ombudsman? I don't know who, if it's a group, if it's one. I've never understood that. If you could help me to understand, I'd appreciate it.
Yes. So when I first came to this agency, I came in as an ombudsman, even though the position was under the Office of the Secretary. So my responsibilities were to advocate for the people that lived in the community. I was what you call a community ombudsman. So I advocated for the people living in the community, in their homes, that needed advocacy for things. You just basically, like I did a lot of landlord just mediating meetings with landlords and clients coming up with agreements, people that may need services but don't know where to look, where to go. Something as tedious as someone needing their food stamp application returned back to the office that it needs to go to. So basically, they're supposed to be an advocate. That's what the word means. The word means advocate. So they're supposed to advocate for people living in the community that require assistance with daily living, things that they wouldn't normally be able to do themselves. The ombudsman can go in and assist with that. Or I worked a lot with the senior centers, because people come in there and they say, you know, I need help with this. And I used to get a lot of calls saying, can you come here and help this person with this? And a lot of it was getting them services that they need to help them to better live in their homes. Right now, the program is being revamped. So they have 2 community ombudsmen, which again, help people that are living in the community. There are, I believe, 4 facility ombudsmen, and these particularly go into long-term care facilities to advocate for clients in long-term care facilities that may have needs. You know, you may have Mr. Elliott, who the aide keeps getting him up at 5 o'clock, and he doesn't want to get up at 5 o'clock for his shower. So he may reach out to the ombudsman and say, listen, I need you to come in here and tell them I don't want to get up until 7 for my shower. So they would call the community ombudsman, and they would go in and they would sit down with management and decide how to best service Mr. Elliott with his shower, getting up later for his shower. So that's the difference in the 2. But I do know Sandra Hale is the new supervisor, and she's in the process of going over her program and trying to revamp what the community ombudsmen are responsible for, so that they can better service those people in the community that don't have advocacy, that don't have caseworkers or social workers already, so that they can get some assistance too.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That was one of my questions, Michelle. Our work group, one of our proposed objectives is to identify gaps in state programs. And I wondered from the APS perspective, what you might see in gaps in state services. It sounds like the Ombudsman program, building that up, you'd see that as a benefit in meeting needs.
Yes, ma'am.
And are there others? Not looking at your program, but other programs that work with your program.
So Adult Protective Services, I can tell you, we work with pretty much every community agency available. Because if our clients need something, we're going to reach everybody that we can to make sure that they get what they need to live in that home. And we have, just to give you an idea, the Ombudsman program they're doing great work for us, because they also are if someone has capacity, even though they may not welcome us, they may not welcome APS, they may not welcome CSP, but most of the time when someone is saying that I'm here for you, I'm here just for you, tell me what you need, I'm your advocate, normally they get a better response. So normally if those clients do not respond well to us and are saying they will not accept anything that we're offering, or they don't want anybody coming to their home, normally we will pass them off to the ombudsman to see if the ombudsman can make some leeway in getting them to agree to some services. And see, they call them and they ask them, what would be a good day to come out and talk to you? And, they make their visit so friendly and so nice. And normally they will allow them to come out and talk to them, which is good for all parties.
Right.
Thank you. And actually, I wanted to follow up on that, on Jerry's point. That was one of my questions, which is, what do you need, Michelle? What is it what do you see as sort of the missing pieces to really improve our response as a state to reports and follow up on elder abuse, be it financial exploitation, physical abuse, self-neglect, what have you? Where are like some, if you could identify things that you see that you wish would improve, because it's your passion, as you stated so clearly, how this is personal for you, given experiences with your grandmother. And I thank you for sharing that. I think we all have some personal experiences that bring us to this group today. So I thank you for sharing that, and would love to know your insight, because I'm sure you have a lot in terms of what you see we could do, that Delaware as a state could do better, because this group is really charged at finding out ways to see what we might be able to do systemically and individually to improve our response.
So the greatest need that I see right now is helping the people in the community that are suffering from mental health or mental illness. Those services usually are voluntary. They have to commit themselves to get assistance. So we may get a referral on someone, we may get 10 referrals on someone, and they are not meeting any of our criteria. And even though we're going in and we're saying the need is they need to, and a lot of it is right now because people are off their meds. They haven't been to their doctor's appointments, so they're off their meds, and we can't do anything until they fall into a crisis mode, which is what you don't want. You don't want them to fall into crisis mode, because then their safety or someone else's safety is an issue. So I think the biggest thing right now is to try and develop something where, I hate to say to force their hand, but something that we can be a little more assertive with trying to get them to get the help that they need before they reach that crisis mode.
I guess I'm wondering about primary care. When someone drops out of going to the doctor, what happens in the state of Delaware? Is there any responsibility on the medical provider to raise a flag in any capacity?
So I think if we're talking about people that have capacity, I'm sure the primary cares reach out. But again, you can't force someone to go to a doctor's appointment. With the people that have mental illness, mental health issues, sometimes if they're a part of an ACT team, I think the ACT team is trying to be assertive with trying to keep these people up to date with their med regimen. But again, those services still are voluntary. So they have to go to their doctor's appointments to get their meds continued and prescriptions filled and all that. So a lot of them, if they're not able to get to their appointments, or sometimes they just stop taking their meds. I don't know how familiar you are with mental illness and mental health, but sometimes when they feel better, they'll just stop taking their meds. So that's no one's responsibility to get them started again until again they're in a crisis. And rarely do they go on their own before they're in a crisis mode.
What is the ACT team that you're referring to?
So the ACT team is actually, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but normally they're with like behavioral health facilities, and they basically are a team that is assigned to deal with this person as far as their behaviors, their interventions, their med regimens. And I do know, I actually lived next door to a guy that had an ACT team, and I just became made aware at the fact that the ACT team now is initiating, I guess they give them like an injection. And that's people that are having like severe cases of mental illness or mental health breakdowns over a period of time. And what they do is they're supposed to go in and get this injection. And if they don't, then there is a CAPIAS issued out on these people. So that's an extreme version of making people that suffer from these issues to keep them contained, but that is not something that they do for everyone. Like, so I guess this ACT team is more like a crisis team that is just there to manage their behavioral health issues.
Thank you. Kylie, I noticed your hand was up again.
Thank you. This is somewhat of an obvious point, but just wanted to stress that as attorneys, elder law attorneys, we get a lot of calls from people who don't know who else to call when they think someone is stealing from the elder in their life, or they think a sibling isn't doing a good job, or alcohol is a big problem with our population. A spouse might drink too much and gets abusive with their partner. And we get these calls, and I just wanted to just really encourage everyone to continue the good work and getting the message out, because it's really hard for us because we give them a phone number, but that's kind of it. We send them on their way. So it would be great if we had better education. And it would be great to be able to hand them a pamphlet. Not that they're coming to see us, but we could say, come in, or we could mail this to you. And it would really be great for them not to have to pay money to attorneys we don't take their money if we can't do anything for them, but basically they're calling the wrong place. And it'd be right to have them call the right place.
So we get a lot of calls from family members, like you just mentioned, in those types of situations. And normally we always take those cases, and I personally take those concerns seriously. And we will go out and make sure that that client is safe and that they are being well taken care of. Now, do we always please both sides? No. And in the event that we do find something, some type of neglect, or someone can't tell us where the money is, we do what's necessary to make sure that that person is protected. If they lack capacity, we advocate on their behalf. However, in most cases, the parent is fully alert. They know that little Susie is not taking the best care of them. They know little Susie is taking their money. And these are the cases to me that are the saddest, because they don't have to live that way, but their choice is still to be that way because they think, if I'm not here with her, I'm going to be in a long-term care facility. So the biggest thing that I think that our agency is trying to do is we're trying to educate people so that they know the goal is to keep you in the community. We don't want to put you in a long-term care facility if you don't have to go. So you don't have to stay in these environments where you're not being treated fairly. So, and I think, just like it took a while for people to get this mindset, it's going to take a while to get people out of the mindset. But I figure if we can help one person out of 5, that's one person that we've helped that has a good story that may be able to tell someone else, hey, you might want to try it because they're here to help you. So that's always my prayer. If I can help one person, that's one person that we've helped.
Thank you, Michelle. I have some questions about that. I'd like to know, how many reports does APS, how many reports did APS receive? I guess we'll look at 2020 or 2021. Approximately how many reports do you receive a year?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, I can get that information. If you give me 2 seconds, I can pull it up.
Or maybe you can provide it later. I think we need to know that. I think we need to know, and we could get that as the number of reports, number of cases that are screened out, number of investigations, any cases that result in prosecution.
In 2020, APS received just over 3,000 reports, and they investigated 2,200 of those reports.
Okay.
And about 60% of those were financial exploitation. So that is by far and away the most that we see. And Michelle can tell you that financial exploitation is going to be a lot more this year. Yeah. Especially due to COVID. We just see a ridiculous amount of cases. And I believe, Michelle, you can quote me if I'm wrong, or you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that we are definitely going to see more reports this year we're on track for that. Yeah.
And of those, if we could go back to 2020 before we, how many of those, so I know because I used to lead these investigations that they're extremely time consuming and can be very challenging, the financial exploitation, and oftentimes it's too late. So if you could summarize the 60% of those financial exploitation, what, Michelle, is going on with those? Are those case, and what is your determination? Like, do you make determinations like found, not found? Like, during your investigation, what are the outcome options that you have when a case is closed?
So we have substantiated or unsubstantiated.
Okay. So of that 2,200, how many were substantiated?
Do you have that, Julie?
I do not have that.
Okay.
Can we get that, Julie, can we get that for some meetings, some data in terms of last 5 years of like substantiated, unsubstantiated, number of investigations, number of reports, number of investigations, and number substantiated, unsubstantiated?
Yeah, so I have for the last 15 years, the reports and investigations, and then the breakdown of the allegation type. We'll have to get back to everybody on the substantiation. We switched our case management system less than 5 years ago, so we might not have 5 years of data on that, but we will try.
Okay, for whatever you have, whatever's easy, whatever's easy, because I know sometimes also when we use different phrases and terminology, it may not line up adequately. So whatever we can get a snapshot picture, I think would be helpful. And then we can maybe invite Michelle back to kind of dive into those numbers, because I'm seeing we're bumping up against time. So I think that would be helpful for us to see, in terms of which cases are substantiated, which are not. I anticipate we're going to see an increase, Michelle, with the COVID in a lot of areas. So why don't we wait on that, and I'll ask more questions about that once we get that data. Self-neglect, are those that's a new aspect? Did you have to change the code at all for that, or is that something that the division was just able to do?
So Michelle, I can answer this one. So the code is going to be changed. That was one of the recommendations from the Joint Legislative Oversight and Sunset Committee. Due to COVID, it had not been changed yet, but we are being told that it will be this year. This legislative session.
All right, who's working on that? Do you have sponsors yet?
I imagine it would be the chairs of the Joint Legislative Oversight and Sunset.
All right, if you don't mind, Julie, following up with Kiki Evinger and asking her about that, because I'm happy to get that going if it has. And I also serve on Sunset, so I'd like to see that we make sure get this legislation drafted and filed as soon as possible.
And I don't want to say that as an agency, we do respond to self-neglect. So we're just changing who are the people in our agency responding. So right now our community nurses respond to it. We're creating a whole new self-neglect unit under APS that will respond to it. And so it'll be part of the law that it's mandated that we have to respond. But we are already responding to self-neglect. So these people are being seen and we are providing services.
Terrific. Just to the extent that I can assist getting that moving along.
Absolutely.
We're happy to do that, because I know sometimes it gets overwhelming with a number of bills that we need to file.
Yeah, we had, I think, 15 recommendations, and there's probably 7 pieces of 7 pieces to the change of our code. That was just one of them. And so there's going to be other things, including putting, how long APS has to respond to reports. And Michelle talked about those timeframes. We're just kind of codifying things. We want it to make the code a bit more equivalent to the Child Protective Code. And so we're mirroring some of the language in both, even though Child Protective is a bit, because it's children, it's a little different, obviously. So.
Okay, great. So I do have a lot of questions about, and that will come from the data that you're going to get in terms of substantiated numbers, unsubstantiated. And I think it will be helpful to see how 2021 stacks up against the prior years given the pandemic. So if you don't mind, Julie and Michelle, and we can talk about it maybe at our February meeting, we can get the data and distribute it to committee members about, number of cases, as easy as it is to get back 4 years, 5 years, whatever that is, number of reports, number of investigations, substantiated, unsubstantiated. And I'm trying to think, Michelle, what else would be helpful to know within that number, I guess? Would it be services provided or prosecutions? Is there any additional data points that you collect regarding these cases in terms of
I think we look at which ones are actually scam related and ones that actually have a live perpetrator, because that's how we separate our cases. And the scams in Delaware are it's astronomical. Like, we have them attacking so many of our seniors.
We do, for those cases, we do have people who just focus on financial exploitation when there's no perpetrator, so the scams. And well, right now we don't, but we did up until a week ago. And then we're actually adding on. So we had 2 people. We're going to have 3 people that are full-time now. Hopefully, once the state approves it, that'll just focus on this. They also provide a lot of education in the community about scams as well.
Okay. So in addition to those cases, if you have the numbers, I guess, then of what is, out in the community type of financial exploitation versus familial or caretaker, I'd like to know that information. Caretaker and familial. And Michelle, in your line of work with the people that you supervise, if you get an allegation that, say, a child is taking money from parents' bank account inappropriately, what do you do there? Do you call the financial institution and make a report so that they can stop the bleed, so that they can investigate, or what's the process?
So normally, if we get those concerns, the first thing we do is, if it hasn't started with the financial institution, we go out and we visit the victim and we have a conversation with the victim. And if this victim has capacity, we ask if we can possibly look at bank statements and sit down and go over bank statements with them. A lot of times, if they don't know that this is going on, then they're usually apt to do it. A lot of times they're already aware. When we get there, they already know, but they're okay with it. Rarely do we have those instances where someone is alert and oriented and they don't know. Rarely do we walk into that. They usually know. They usually don't want to prosecute. Sometimes they'll call themselves and they want us to come out and mediate. They want them to stop taking their money, but they're not willing to prosecute, which makes our job difficult because normally that's the only way that you're going to stop them. We will assist them with opening new accounts. We will assist them. We'll even give them transportation to the banks to open up new accounts if they're willing. And sometimes that is the case. They will do that. We'll even call Social Security and try to divert checks and get them into other accounts. Whatever we can do to help them, we usually will do. But most of the time what happens is we go through all this to change the accounts and they end up giving the perpetrator the card again. So
do you find, Michelle, that is sort of the biggest fear that seniors have about, or vulnerable adults about reporting the abuse, is that their loved one, the person that they rely on for any love, care, or family comfort, is the person also ripping them off, and that they're afraid that by the fear of prosecution is that the biggest chilling effect that they have in terms of reporting this, or what would you say is?
I think a lot of them, and I find that a lot of it is grandchildren now. It's not the actual children, it's the grandchildren. And I think they can't fathom the idea of prosecuting their grandchild. And sometimes the parents are on board and trying to assist. But what they do is they're trying to put things in place because they're thinking this is going to help me stay at home. So they're worried about living at home. They're worried about living alone. They're worried that if they let someone know that they've been exploited, that it's going to make them look irresponsible. It's going to make them look like you're not able to stay in your home anymore. So I think the fear is that, one, they're going to be alone, and two, that they're going to not be able to be at home. And those are the things that we're battling against now, because a lot of them just don't trust that we're trying to keep you at home. They think that we want to take them from their homes. I've heard people say the state just wants to take my house. So it's a matter of getting the education out into the community to try to change people's perspective on the state and what we're trying to do, which is we're trying to assist you to live in your home, but we want you to be here as safely as possible. So
thank you. That's really helpful. And if I may offer one thought, and I'm sure, Julie, you're and Michelle doing this with this marketing campaign of 60% or overwhelming majority of the cases that are come into APS are financial exploitation. And that, I would think, would drive the percentage of what you're doing with your marketing campaign, and making sure that the marketing that you're doing is, overwhelmingly on that financial exploitation, so that you're getting that word out. Just a thought. And finally, and then I do see we're getting close on time. I often found it wasn't the biggest theft that caused a senior citizen to get concerned and call police. It was really maybe one of the final ones, or some token, a ring, that a deceased husband gave, or that the grandchild may have ripped them off of $40,000 in cash, but it was like a final token, that a personal item that was taken, that really caused them to make the report. So sadly, it is often too late. So anything that when we're talking about legal and financial barriers to aging in place, I think that is really financial exploitation is one of the biggest barriers. So I would love for all of us between now and the next couple of meetings to really come up with a suggestion for what we can do, what the state can do to make a difference here, and help the folks at APS be able to see their numbers decline. Would be great. So that was my final thought. And I did see that, Jerry, I don't know if your hand's still up, or if, no, down, okay. And Kylie, I don't know if your hand's still up, or, yes.
It is, and I'll keep it quick. Global point is, as a society, we need to help our seniors better from the start, so that they don't even rely on untrustworthy people to begin with. And I tried to emphasize that in our list of barriers. And I realized that we are limited to what, as you said, Representative, what the state can do. But it is short-sighted to only look at the after effect. If in the marketing, Julie, there can be some kind of message about, I don't mean to be very kumbaya about this, but like, come together, families, support one another, highlight the issue, because people are oblivious. You will have two siblings. One is taking care of mom. The other one is content to just ignore the whole situation, and all this bad stuff happens. So my point is, I kindly ask us to please remember maybe the thing that we don't have control over, but the thing that maybe we have the opportunity to send the message. If people were getting more support from their senior center, or from their church, or from their doctor's office, or from their neighborhood civic association, they wouldn't be relying on the bad guy.
Kylie, thank you. I will add that our director, Michelle, and my director, Melissa Smith, who is on the larger Aging in Place committee, has been for a while now, but is really looking into healthy aging and age-friendly communities, which is they're all about supporting people as they age and really looking at upstream services. And I talk about this when it comes to legal services all the time. Legal services is a health preventative tool. The services that Olga provides the people that we refer to her in the elder law program can help prevent financial exploitation later on. And so those are the kind of things that our director is really interested in pushing, and us messaging. Aging is all about vibrancy, and we don't want to always focus on the vulnerabilities of older adults and always focus on, adult protective services is here, to save the day at the end of the day. We want to look at the beginning of the day and how we can help people.
And I guess that was, Kylie, in your slides, means testing, that there are a number of services, but that means testing keeps people out of those services. That was really a section of your slides that I would like to see more attention paid to, so that we build service systems for people who have the means, but I think I read St. Francis, a report talking about people who have funds not expending them and getting services to maybe have some of those case management services, so that 30,000 that is taken by children that could possibly be purchasing some case management services to help the family pre-crisis.
Excellent points. And thank you, Jerry and Kylie. And thank you to this committee for all the excellent questions and dialogue, and particularly Michelle and Julie. Michelle, thank you for this tremendous presentation. And if you're open to it, we'd like to have you back to talk more about the data, maybe at our February meeting. And hopefully maybe by then we have some good ideas to help ultimately reduce your caseload. That's the goal, right? But thank you very much, and happy holidays to you, and happy New Year as well.
You're very welcome. Thank you all for inviting me. I hope I was very helpful, and I appreciate all of the comments and all of your diligence in trying to help us service our clients. And happy holidays to you all too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're at the section of the agenda where we're looking at our next meeting date. And Julie and I had an opportunity to talk prior to the meeting, and we looked at the calendars, and MLK is January 17th. So we were thinking about January 24th of 22 at 11 a.m. Again, the 11 to 12:30 timeframe. So that will be the next meeting, unless I see a large number of hands saying that there's a conflict with that date.
What's the date again?
January 24th, which is a Monday. Again, 11 a.m. to 12:30 time period to keep consistency. Okay. Our next section of our agenda is public comment. Mike, if you could please see if there's anybody waiting, and also say how, if there aren't, how anybody listening, how they might provide public comment to the committee.
There are no individuals in the waiting room waiting to provide public comment.
Anybody wishes to provide public comment? Is there an email address where they can email that?
Yes, they could email me at michael.sheridan@delaware.gov.
Okay, and if you could please spell that, Michael, so that anyone listening can have that clearly, that would be great. Thank you.
MICHAEL Sheridan SHERIDAN @delaware.gov, and Delaware is spelled DELAWARE.gov.
Thank you so much, Mike. Lastly, we have closing comments. Are there any comments for the group, or if not, how about a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn. Thank you.
Any second?
A second.
Well, happy holidays, everybody, and happy New Year to see you in 22. And thanks again. It's great to see everybody, and great to continue our good work.